All right, welcome back, everybody. Barry Markson in with you here for Mike Broomhead on a Friday. Hope you're having a good Friday and heading into the weekend here. Excited to be joined right now by Arizona Senate President Warren Petersen. And President Petersen, thanks for being here on KTAR.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, I wanted to bring you in because I saw this week you dropped a bill in the Senate. I know the House is going to drop a similar bill that would change Arizona's early voting laws a little bit. But really the goal is to get the reporting of election results done sooner, right? As I understand it, the goal is by the end of election night, when we're, into the middle of the night, into the wee hours of the morning, but to report, 95+% of the votes so that we would be able to, or whoever would call the elections, we would have most of the votes in. Is that generally the goal?
That's exactly what we want to do. We met with had a great meeting with the Florida Secretary of State and his staff. Had 3 of the supervisors from Maricopa County in the meeting. We had several legislators in the meeting to identify, how is it that Florida can have their results at 8 o'clock at night and Arizona is the last in the country to report the electoral votes. I received an inordinate amount of messages from constituents just completely frustrated. And so this legislation will end the frustration. It will increase confidence in our system because, sadly with time, or I guess justifiably with time, people, have less trust in things. And we live in this society, quite frankly, a modern era where we get things instantly.
Yeah.
We have the internet. You can jump on and find things out. We've got technology. So the 2 key differences between what we noted between us and Florida is they have a cutoff of Friday for their mail-in early ballots. So that's number one that this legislation would do.
So your early mail-in ballot, we all get that mail-in ballot, and we get that 28 days before Election Day?
Yeah, or 20. I think it's 29, but maybe 20. It's 28. I think it's 29. But
okay, so 20. I'm going to go with you. So 29. Does your bill change that? Do we get it 3 days earlier and allow more time, or does it matter?
So what we do is we have the cutoff, but what we changed was we added 2 more days of early voting. So in person.
Okay.
So we mandated that Saturday and Monday are now, you have to provide early in-person voting for Saturday and Monday. So this argument's a little ridiculous. This argument, somebody trying to say you're disenfranchising a vote, is completely ridiculous because we added 2 more days of early voting. And not only that, come on, we have 29 days. So now we're starting, you can have this argument about days. Okay, so how many days do you need to vote? Do you need 30? So you need 31?
So let's make sure everybody's understanding it. So under this law, if it passes and signed by the governor, we get our mail-in ballots like normal.
Right.
And but instead of having it has to be received by Election Day at 7 p.m. on Election Day, now it has to be received by Friday before Election Day.
At 7 p.m.
At 7 p.m.
Yeah.
And anything if anything received after that, any mail-in ballot received after Friday at 7 won't be counted. Am I saying that right?
So let me give you the progression a little differently.
Okay.
So right now, what they say is the last day to mail your early ballot, to mail it, is Tuesday.
Okay.
Is what they recommend. It has to be received by Election Day.
The following Tuesday.
Yeah. What we're saying is the last day to hand off or drop off your ballot is Friday at 7 p.m. So if you're doing a drop off.
When does it have to be received if you mail it in?
Still Election Day.
Oh, so it's just the drop off. Oh, I didn't understand
it's just
that.
A drop off.
Okay,
yeah.
So we're not. So basically, we're no longer allowed to drop off after Friday at 7.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but they will still recommend. They will still recommend and tell you the issue here. What they have found. There's 2 things, and I'll get to the second thing. We're kind of stuck here on the first thing, but the most important thing is you had hundreds of thousands of people drop off their ballot day of.
I remember, not this cycle, but when Governor Ducey was still governor, and he was shown, like they show the governor going to vote, but he wasn't voting. He was dropping off his mail-in ballot. And I'm like, Governor, what are you doing? Don't tell people to do that, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I quite frankly, the day I get my ballot, I fill it out and I mail it back in, and then I go on and check. I just don't want to have
I procrastinate.
any problems.
I don't do it that fast. I procrastinate. I like to worry about it sitting on my counter longer.
You're normal. A lot of people procrastinate, and that's why it's important to have this deadline and this cutoff, because people go with deadlines and cutoffs. I mean, go back to high school when your teacher assigned you an essay. If your teacher said, "Hey, your essay is due in 3 weeks," when did you write your essay?
That's right. All right, so your mail-in ballot, if you mail it in, can still be received up until 7 p.m. on Tuesday.
Correct.
The Tuesday election day.
Yes.
And what's the second part you want to tell me about?
So the second part is also what we is different and what is causing days of delays. In fact, I can't remember the county, but there was one county that was pretty much in crisis over this issue, and that was right now. If you show up early in person to vote, you fill out your ballot, and then you stick it in an envelope and sign the envelope.
Early voting is treated like mail-in voting.
Right.
Okay.
And so then it has to be signature verified, and they have to open the envelopes.
Right.
So the opening of the envelopes, believe it or not, it adds a lot of time for them to open all these envelopes. So what you would do now is you show up and you vote in person, you show your ID, so now there's no signature verification needed, and you put your ballot in a secure box and it gets tabulated. So that takes out it deals with two things that have been taking time. You don't have the signature verification, and you don't have to open the envelopes.
So if you vote in person, early in-person voting, in the past it's been treated like a mail-in ballot. Right. Now it'll be treated like day of election day voting. Okay.
Yeah, just like you're voting on election day.
And will the tabulation, you said it'll be tabulated, will it be tabulated right then, or will we wait and do it later?
So that's up to the recorders.
Okay.
On-site tabulating has always been available, and so some of them do it, some of them don't.
Either way is okay.
So it's going to continue the way it's been done.
All right. Well, Warren Petersen is with us. He's the president of the Arizona Senate. I have to tell you, I was talking to my wife this morning, getting ready to come do the show, and I told her you were coming in to talk about this, and she went off. She loves this. She loves she loves the bill. She thinks it's ridiculous that it takes as long as it does. And I explained to her that it's been like this for 30 years, but no one cared about Arizona for the first 25 of those years. Right. But now we're a swing state, and people are paying attention. But you're right. We'll have. What do you think we'll have? 95% of the vote in by election night?
Yeah, well, we'll have enough. So the estimates that we put together was this will shave off at least 7 days. So what you can do is kind of look at the election and say, where were we 7 days after the election? Well, we knew all the results.
Right.
So in other words, night of, we would have known everything in Arizona.
Okay. All right. Well, very interesting.
So that it doesn't mean you're done counting. There'll still be maybe 2 or 3 days of counting, but you will know the outcome.
Yeah.
It's just math. You get to a certain point where you can determine based off ballots outstanding.
And then the counties can still count all the votes that come in early as they come in. They don't have to wait.
They do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nothing.
They can do that now. There's no aggregation permitted, but you are allowed. They do count.
Okay.
They count them. They have the number, but they can't aggregate. You don't push that aggregation button.
When you say aggregate, just so people understand, they can't say, "Hey, here are the totals so far."
Yeah.
Okay, because we don't want that getting out early.
No.
All right.
No.
That's fair. So what's the opposition to this? Is it that some people are such bad procrastinators that they're not gonna be able to drop off their ballot on election day, and now they won't vote?
From regular citizens, I've heard no opposition.
Yeah.
From some of the really far left-leaning, voting groups, and some of the really far left legislators, I've heard some opposition. But I haven't heard it from your rank and file. In fact, I think you're going to find public sentiment wants this, just like your wife.
Yeah.
And that's a good thermometer. You love talking to family members that are not political. That's how I get a good gauge of where, where the public is on something. And my whole family, they want it too. So.
Yeah. And it's, and what my wife said, and I think a lot of people say this is, you have 4 weeks. Like, how much time do you need, right? But I'm going to tell you, and you know this, there are some people who just put it off.
Right.
And they go drop it off on election day because that's the first time they've actually completed the ballot and mail it in.
Sure.
And I guess the answer is, if they haven't, now you're saying they could vote early now on Saturday and Monday before election day, which isn't available now.
Right.
So
there is no early voting on those days right now.
And they can still vote on election day.
Right.
So that's still there too.
Yeah, they totally can. And there will be a primary, and there's going to be a lot of media, I think, on this, and people are going to get educated on it. And the word's going to be out, and everybody's going to know that if you want to drop off your ballot, well, actually, there's another provision in there that even takes care of that scenario. If you want to drop off your ballot day of, you still can. You just have to take it to the recorder's office.
Oh, really?
So, yeah, so that reduces that That's what Florida does.
Oh.
And they have found not very many people do that.
Yeah.
But it does a couple things. First of all, you don't have as many people doing it. It's better to just go to a close polling station and vote in person. There's always a polling place close by. But they have fewer people doing it, and it's close. It's where the action is at, right? That's where all the tabulating occurs and everything. So if you drop it off right there,
save some time. And can the recorder under the new law, for the people who drop their ballot off on Election Day at the recorder's office, can the recorder's office open that ballot and start the process immediately, or do they still have to wait until after Election Day voting is over?
Yeah, well, they would have to signature verify.
Right.
So, but they can start the process immediately,
Okay.
and it saves the trip. It saves the transport.
They can get the 3 people necessary to open the envelope working, so it'll be okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right, Arizona Senate President Warren Petersen, thanks for coming in and explaining that. I think you're going to find a lot of support for that. That's going to, and I know the House is going to drop a similar bill. So, do you think you're going to have a lot of Democratic opposition or no?
I don't know. I
assume the Republicans
I'm always an optimist. I feel like we definitely should. If we've got some reasonable Democrats, we should get some Democrat support. I don't know what kind of pushback they're going to see from their base, or some of the kind of these groups that I was talking about. I'm hopeful we'll have some Democrats, and then I'm hopeful I'm optimistic the governor will sign it. I mean, she said she wouldn't sign stuff in the past, and she ended up signing it. I think it's a mistake to ever say out front, I'll never sign something. There's something called amendments. There's something called learning things new. And so I think if we get it on our desk, and I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, with public sentiment, anything is possible. And public sentiment is totally with us on this. And
have you spoken with the governor about it at all to see?
I haven't personally talked about this issue.
All right. Well, I'm sure we'll be talking about it here over the next few weeks and months. Senator Warren Petersen, the president of the Arizona Senate, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Thanks for watching the Mike Broomhead Show. Catch up on Amazing Arizonans, a KTAR News podcast, and click the button in the middle to subscribe.